In 1985, the miners were out on strike. But at least they weren't inside watching the first episode of EastEnders, which set its trademark cheery note from the very first scene.
He's dead.
And the music was equally dismal, as we can see here, with Go West, hoping we would close our eyes and therefore not realise that a spanner is not actually a microphone. While Shakin' Stevens teamed up with the world's worst Santa, seen here looking like he's found him behind a bottle bank drinking medicine. We tried to escape by hopping into our Sinclair C5s, the year's must-have vehicle, which, as you can see, was half bike, half machine, all rubbish. But when 1985 wasn't drab, it was really weirdly pervy. Whether it was people showing you the right technique with a flake, that's it, lips and tongue, don't use the teeth, or Sheena Easton singing about her sugar walls. If you're not sure whether she means something sexual, in a moment, she'll make it, well, explicit. Thanks for clearing that up, Sheena. With all this frothing horniness about, no wonder one of the year's top movies was Weerd Science.
I'd give her one digit mammary glands.
A fascinating documentary about two nerds making an artificial woman.
What would you little maniacs like to do first?
And that was 1985, definitely my most embarrassing year.
That was 1985. That bring it all flooding back?
It
to
does,
your
unfortunately.
Private parts or whatever it was.
God, it feels like in the Middle Ages, doesn't it?
Weerd Science for you. Did that get you? Reach the parts other teenage films couldn't reach?
Yeah, well, it was two teenage boys making a woman, their fantasy woman. I mean,
yeah.
Hello? That was...
Yeah, but hang on a minute. We know that Stephen Mangan at this point, the walls were covered with Good Housekeeping. I mean, you must look at that going, oh, what?
She's very useful with a Hoover, Kelly LeBrock.
I just remember the moment where Kelly LeBrock, like appears and,
yeah.
like, with loads of, like, sort of stars in their eyes, sort of steam around her and smoke and, like...
I mean, she was beautiful, but she didn't have the words Good Housekeeping stuck to her forehead.
What was the significance of that flake advert? That was just quite a sexy...
Flake adverts were porn back in the 80s, basically.
Oh.
It was very suggestive, kind of nibbling of flakes.
Devouring and, yeah, all sorts.
Right,
I mean,
all plays on the same
It was quite
feet.
pervy.
Oh, yeah, on the same thing. It wasn't the same, like, with a curly-whirly. They're such an impractical chocolate, aren't they? They're very messy if you're not careful.
Yeah. They could have gone with that in the marketing, couldn't they? It goes fucking everywhere, this. They went for the blowjob route.
1990 was chocker with embarrassment. Take the music. If it wasn't Vanilla Ice furiously humping the stage on Top of the Pops, that poor floor. Then it was even worse, as Andrew Lloyd Webber teamed up with Timmy Mallett and somehow became a smash hit. Now, that really is embarrassing. 1990's biggest phenomenon were the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, who, judging by this high-octane action and nunchuck-tastic movie trailer, must be the worst thing you can bump into down a manhole. Give me the Fatberg any day. Cowabunga. 1990 was also a huge year for Reebok pumps, as seen in this quite cool but very bewildering ad. Though, to be fair, he has got better mic skills than Vanilla Ice.
Cooking them seeds like a pound of bacon.
Like a pound of bacon? How on earth did he not end up in the Wu-Tang Clan? And that was 1990. Definitely my most embarrassing year.
There he is, the human Pez machine of Vanilla Ice. Were you a Vanilla Ice fan?
Not really, no. Wasn't into Vanilla Ice.
No.
Or Timmy Mallett. Although I did used to quite like Wackaday. You know, Wackaday, where you look at each other and go, there.
Yes.
Itsy
Witsy, for Phil's Witsy Bitsy teeny weeny polka dot bikini was the baby shark of its day.
Looking back on that, do you think that was an embarrassing time, 1990? Was that embarrassing?
Yeah, I think so, because I think with those genres in there with Vanilla
There are cool
Ice,
times to be a teenager, aren't
not
there?
looking
We all
back
look
to
at
the
the 60s and things and look at that.
68, is
Yeah.
it?
Yeah.
No.
Exactly.
Yeah, that looked fairly embarrassing.
Like, rave was happening and the dance, you know, clubbing culture was happening in the background of all of those cringe, you know, the cringe-worthy stuff as well. So that's... I mean, mind you, I was still quite embarrassing going out raving in my cat suit. You know, it wasn't exactly cool.
What were your most memorable gigs that you went to?
I went to see James at the GMEX in Manchester, which was a great gig.
Yeah.
I went with my mate Joanne, but we were right at the back, and it was a massive crowd. And so I came up with a cunning plan to get to the front of the crowd. I would pretend that I was going to be sick, and my friend Joanne would push ahead going, she's going to be sick, and I'd be going...
Excuse me.
It worked, it was brilliant, like the crowd parted like the sea, and Joanne going, she's being sick.
What's the logic there? She's going to throw up. Get her to the front.
Yeah.
Get her further away from the loos.
She needs to be on stage. She needs to get on stage.
So everybody moved and cleared a path, and we pushed through and, like, literally got to the front barriers, and me and Joanne were like high-five, like our amazing plan worked. But then everybody started to point at us like, she's going to be sick, she's going to be sick. So the security guy came and dragged us both over the barrier at the front and took us to St John's ambulance. And when I got dragged over, I lost a kicker. I had my kicker boots on.
Everything about 2006 was utterly ridiculous, not least the panic shown in this disturbing news report about the terrifying technological threat of MySpace.
This MySpace account was set up by a detective posing as a teenage girl.
Yeah, I think that's called catfishing, detective. I'm afraid you're under arrest. This all seems ludicrous now, but of course 2006 was a very different time. It was in fact Chico time, whatever that meant.
It's Chico time.
The colours, the dancing, the kids, the Chico. Too much. Let's have a Chico timeout. The movies were so loud and sugary, like High School Musical, with its sickly harmonies and over-expressive acting, that you'd leave the cinema with a headache and type 2 diabetes. If you wanted erotic, you went to Celebrity Big Brother, where George Galloway pretended to be a cat for some reason. Bad pussy. I genuinely can't look at him while he's doing that with his tongue. The year was all too much. I spent too much of the time feeling like this guy, who somehow turned up for an interview for the BBC's IT department, got mistaken for a guest expert, and ended up being interviewed on TV. His shocked reaction as he clocked on was priceless.
Well, Guy Cooney is the editor of the technology website News Wireless. Hello, good morning to you.
And that's what 2006 felt like to me. Insane and very awkward. Definitely my most embarrassing year.
I mean, that is...
Oh, he was brilliant.
That is one of the clips of the century.
Yeah, astonishing.
Of course, the other half of the story that we've never gotten to see was the tech expert who had an interview for a job in the IT department. That's what I want to see.
Yeah,
Still
we got
working
it.
there now.
An embarrassing year, 2006.
It was sort of the height of, I think, reality TV. It was
that Big Brother clip with George Galloway.
Yeah, that was dreadful. And there's so much attention on reality TV. It still had so much novelty to it. And I think that's a bit embarrassing for an entire nation to be enwrapped by.
That clip, that George Galloway clip. Big Brother started off as this sort of social reality experiment. By the time George Galloway is coming in and out of the cat flap, I think it's got embarrassing, hasn't it?